Oh, hi. Anything new? Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Crue Trime. Crue Trime. Crue Trime. If you are new here, hi. If you are not new here, welcome back to the old background and the old haircut. I'm such a cornball. When I was at work and people asked, "Oh, you cut your hair?" And I said, "No, I just washed it and it shrank." Down to business. I am here to tell you a terrible story to ruin your day. And put on my makeup at the same time. So if that sounds like fun to you, you're in the right place. So make sure you subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell notification. I think it's right there. Could be right there. Anyways, and then that way you will never miss one of my terrible stories. A little bit of housekeeping before we get too far ahead. Yes, I am putting on makeup while I tell the story, but I don't talk about it. So if you want to know what I'm using, look down in the description box because everything is linked. This is the story of Brice Rhodes. On Sunday, May 22nd of 2016, a young girl was riding her bike past an abandoned house on River Park Drive near 40th Street in the West Shawnee area of Louisville, Kentucky. She saw something in the yard that caught her eye, so she stopped to, look a little closer. And what she found was two dead bodies. The bodies were that of two young male teenagers. They had been beaten and stabbed and had been badly burned. The grass around their bodies was burnt also, in fact. They didn't have any kind of ID on them at all, so investigators got busy trying to figure out who these young men were. They circulated some artist renderings, sketches, to local schools the next day, and they were quickly identified as brothers. 16-year-old Reese Gordon and 14-year-old Larry Ordway. They hadn't come to school that day. Surely there must have been a missing persons report for these young men. No. I mean, that's weird, right?
That's weird.
When investigators located the boy's mother, Elizabeth Marie Wren, she explained to them that it had become pretty common for the boys to disappear for a few days at a time, and she didn't have a lot of control over them. Also, she was a single mom, she was gone a lot, being out to support the household, so she wasn't around. Well, Reese and Larry had been running around with a much older friend who was a bad influence. On Saturday night, Reese and Larry were seen getting into the car with two other teenagers headed to a party. Maurice Reese Glendale Gordon was born on April 1st, 2000 in Louisville, Kentucky, to Marie Wren and Maurice Smith. I don't think Marie was ever married to any of these fellas, but at any rate, the relationship did not last, unfortunately. But Reese's extended family, like his grandparents, were very involved in his life. He loved basketball and music, and he spent most of his free time after school working on it. Reese wasn't a super great student. He had to repeat at least 1 year in school, but he really did seem to want to learn and to do better. In fact, his grandma was helping to tutor him, and she said that he never complained. Reese had a younger brother named Larry. Larry Rosita Ordway Jr. was born almost exactly 2 years later, on April 2nd, 2002, in Louisville. Same mother as Reese, but different father, Larry Rosita Ordway Sr. So their mom, Marie, didn't stay with Larry's father either, but much like Reese, Larry's extended family and his grandparents were very involved in his life. He was an avid sports fan and athlete, and he even played football at the school that they both attended, Olmsted Academy. Now, 14-year-old Larry was a better student than his brother Reese. Larry was on the honor roll, and because Reese had to repeat at least one school year, the two boys were actually both in the same grade at the same time, 8th grade. Now, both of their extended families were planning a shared 8th grade graduation party to celebrate this milestone with the boys, but unfortunately, that day would never come because of Brice Rhodes. Well, who is Brice Rhodes? Glad you asked. Brice Jamar Rhodes was born on August 9th, 1990 in Louisville, Kentucky, and although we know a lot about his long criminal history, and we'll get to that, there's not much information about his family or childhood. It's not out there and he's not talking. There is some speculation that, bottom line, it was rough. So our guy Brice, also known as El Rambo Guzman, was an aspiring rapper. He was often filming unremarkable rap videos and putting them up on YouTube. You can see them now. You can search for him.
Flexing real hard, I ain't talking about a gym. Way I run
a check, you can call me Tory Sims.
He was just, waiting to hit the big time. He was also involved in some local gang activity and was just an all-around shithead. He also liked to surround himself with young people, much younger people. People he could influence, people that admired him. One could even say that he was grooming the young boys around him.
Just as I thought. Trash.
Now, it wasn't anything like that, but, there's more than one way to groom a person. What he was doing, he would keep these youngins around that he could get to do things for him. Dirty work. You know what I'm saying? He was a shithead. Take Larry and Reese, for example. So when they met Brice in 2015, Reese was 15, Larry was 13, Rambo was 24. Like, this was a grown-ass man. Okay, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, tattoos all over his face and body. He had no business hanging around boys that young, but, he would drive them around, he would buy them clothes, give them money to spend on whatever they wanted, take them out to eat, you get it. He would tell these young, impressionable boys, if you stick with me and do what I say, you'll make it someday. He had these kids believing that they were going to be some kind of rap crew or something. I don't know why they thought he was so successful. He lived with his mom. But okay. Brice's criminal history was vast and long. He had done prison time for armed robbery. He had domestic violence charges. He was on the sex offender registry for kidnapping and assaulting an underage person. Multiple instances of assault. One time he strangled and punched out his own mom when she was unloading groceries from the car.
Disgusting.
Well, even though this guy was absolutely a criminal, the boys that hung out with him later said that they were never afraid of him. One of the other boys that hung around a lot was a 17-year-old guy named Jacory Taylor. He would later say of Brice, he would take us out to eat. He'd say things like, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to get money. He was kind of a cool person. I wasn't scared of him at all. He looked out for us, basically. But Jacory should have been afraid of Brice. They all should have been. Also hanging out in the crew was a 15-year-old boy named Anwan Carter, another kid from the neighborhood. And not surprising and kind of sad, but the commonality with these boys was that they had no father figures in their homes. They were easy targets for Brice. I'm not making excuses or saying that it's okay. It's context, right? Back to these rap videos. They're terrible. Okay, you can watch them. But in these rap videos that Brice made, the boys would often be featured holding guns and money and pretending to be gangsters like they thought Brice was. So you get it. They were dazzled by him and they thought he was tough, he was cool, and he was there for them.
I ain't never told no motherfucking lie.
So on May 4th, 2016, the group was out driving around like they often did, and Brice had actually allowed Reese to drive, and Jacory was sitting up in the front seat. So in the back seat was Larry, Reese's brother, and Brice. Anwan was driving a truck behind them, following. Well, they happened upon a man walking down the street, and Brice told Reese, stop the car. Then Brice reached out of the backseat and shot the man, who fell into the road right in front of Anwan's truck, who then ran him over on accident. So apparently Brice had recognized this man in the street as someone that a local gang was offering a bounty in exchange for his death, a contract killing, essentially. Brice was going to action this hit and then share the cash with these teens. The problem was that the man he shot, 40-year-old Christopher Jones, was the wrong guy, but he didn't know at the time. After the shooting, all of the teens were instructed to not tell their moms, teachers, friends, anybody. Snitches didn't live long in Brice's world, that's for sure. He took them out to eat and then took them home for the night. So we have a murderer and 4 teenage witnesses / accomplices. Over the next 2 weeks, Larry and Reese seemed to spend less time around Brice. Were they sketched out about what they saw or what they kind of participated in? And we don't know. But Brice's wheels started turning. He definitely thought that they were, feeling guilty and that they were going to snitch or already had. And he had already convinced Jacory and Anwan that the brothers, Reese and Larry, were a risk and they couldn't be trusted. So on May 21st, 2016, Jacory went over to the brothers' house, convinced them to come out to this party that Brice was going to take them all to. They were hesitant at first, but because it was Jacory, they figured it was okay, so they went with him. They were all very close, if you're not following. So first, they went to Brice's house, Brice's mama's house. Well, when the boys got to Brice's house, everything seemed normal at first. You know, they were getting ready for the party, getting dressed up and such, but then the mood turned. And let me put on my eyebrows and I will be right back. Okay, so Anwan started to fight with the brothers, saying that they stole money from Brice, which of course wasn't true. Then Jacory joined the fight and Reese pulled out a knife. Brice hit Reese and knocked the knife out of his hand. Then the three older guys overpowered the younger guys and tied them up with belts. Larry was tied up and then locked in the bathroom. Then Brice calmly explained that the boys had witnessed him commit a murder and he was afraid that they would tell the police, so he needed to execute them. I'm just kidding. Nothing was explained. Okay, nothing was explained. Brice just decided that this was the vibe he was going to go with.
Motherfucking lie.
Fake accusations, essentially. And he brought Reese to his knees in the living room. Reese was crying and Brice was demanding that he beg for forgiveness. Forgiveness for what? Nothing. You know, none of this makes sense. Brice put a rag or a sock or whatever it was into Reese's mouth, and then he put a toboggan, you know, a knit hat, over Reese's head, pulled all the way down so that they wouldn't have to look in his eyes. Jacory and Anwan watched while Brice beat the shit out of him with his fists and with a bat, and then he laid down a blanket on the floor in front of him. You know, this whole time he's demanding that Reese be begging for forgiveness, which he was doing, but like for what exactly? Nothing. Then he began to stab Reese in the chest repeatedly with the knife. Once Reese stopped moving and breathing, they moved his body to the side and then they brought out his brother. I mean, poor Larry. You know, that kid had to kneel next to his dead brother, knowing that the same thing was about to happen to him. Jacory would later say that Larry repeatedly begged Brice to spare him and to forgive him, but it did no good. Brice put the rag or whatever into Larry's mouth so that no one could hear him scream, put the toboggan again over his head, and then proceeded to beat and stab him upwards of 20 times in the chest. And in this case, he also made Jacory come over and stab Larry also. So just as he had made these teenagers accomplices in this shooting, he's now also making Jacory and Anwan accomplices to the murders of Reese and Larry. Once Larry was dead, Brice called the other member of their group, 19-year-old Tieran Coleman, and he came over to help, you know, put the now dead brothers into Reese's car. Tieran was just like Larry, Reese, Jacory, and Anwan. You know, he had been around Brice for years. He was part of this group. He later said that he didn't think that he could say no to Brice. You know, you just don't say no to him. You can actually watch a lot of this interrogation footage. And by the way, none of these kids called Brice Brice. They called him Rambo.
Stop it.
Does this look like a Rambo to you? Get out of here. Great value, discount Rambo. Anyways, I'm getting off track. So Brice and Tieran took Larry and Reese's bodies to an abandoned house on River Park Road, and then they poured gasoline on the bodies and lit a match. An eyewitness would later say that they saw Brice near a dumpster that was on fire, where the boys had been left. And inside that dumpster, police ended up finding pieces of the blanket that the boys were wrapped in, some of their clothes and their shoes. Anwan and Jacory were left to clean up the bloody mess at Brice's mother's house. And then when he and Tieran came back from dumping the bodies, Brice took them all out to eat and then took them home for the night, making the same kind of threats at the end when he was dropping them off, like, don't tell anybody, or else. Okay, so back to police talking to the boy's mother. When police spoke with her, she told them that her boys had gone out to a party at Brice Rhodes' house on Saturday night. She explained that she hated the boys hanging around this psycho, her words, but she didn't have control. She couldn't stop them from doing much of anything. Okay, so with all this information, the police went to Brice's house. He wasn't there, but it didn't take them long to find him. He also had an outstanding warrant for his arrest for domestic assault, so they were able to immediately arrest him on that. And at first, he seemed fine when he was talking to detectives.
Where they run away to? Like,
well, if we knew that, man, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I wish I could help, know where they was, I don't,
But once they really started asking questions about Larry and Reese, all of a sudden he knew nothing, he saw nothing, and he needed a lawyer.
Motherfucking lie.
Investigators also pretty quickly located Jacory, Anwan, and Tyron. The boy's mother, Marie, she has been heavily criticized for her parenting and her perceived associations and activities. You can look that up for yourself. Now, Marie might not have been able to control her boys, maybe she didn't care, but she knew the names of all these little shitheads that her kids were running around with, and she named names. So the police interviewed both Anwan and Jacory about the death of these boys, and Anwan was the first to break. He told them everything. In fact, he told them more than what they were looking for, because remember, the police were only asking for information about Reese and Larry. They hadn't connected Brice to any of the murders, and they had zero leads on the death of this Christopher Jones, the one that was shot in the street. No connection. From their point of view, Christopher Jones was a man with no enemies, and they had no explanation to why he had been killed.
They seen somebody just falling in the street, and they said Rambo, so I cut the street and shot him. And while Reese, he was a getaway driver, so he was driving.
Brice had shot and killed him, thinking that he was the guy that had the price on his head from another gang. He explained that Reese and Larry's deaths only happened because of that shooting death of Christopher Jones. He told them everything, all the details about the murder in Brice's mother's house. Basically, all of the details that I already told you came from Anwan.
He made my Reese on his knees and beg for forgiveness. And he put a toboggan over his head, and he put a rag in his mouth, and then he stabbed him. We moved Maurice to the side, and we brought his brother, and we put the toboggan over his head. He put the toboggan over his head and put the sock in his mouth. And started stabbing him too.
He made y'all stab him? So you and Corey stabbed him too? Alright, how many times do you think you stabbed him?
I stabbed him one time.
Jacory also told the exact same story, and they even explained that Tyron had helped Brice move the bodies, so then Tyron was arrested. So the teens were all held and charged in addition to the charming Brice Rhodes. So these three teens, Jacory Taylor, Anwan Carter, and Tyron Coleman, all pled guilty to 3 counts of facilitation of murder and tampering with evidence. The 2 that were under 18 were to serve the beginning of their 10-year sentences in juvenile confinement, and then the rest in adult prison once they became legal adults. All 3 of these teens got 10 years in prison, and part of their plea deal is that they must all testify against Brice Rhodes if he ever makes it to trial. About that, Brice Rhodes has been nothing but trouble since he was arrested in 2016. Before then. As of today, it's been 8 years, and he still has not gone to trial, even though the prosecutor announced a long time ago that they are seeking the death penalty. Also, so much time has passed now that in 2019, Anwan Carter was released from custody for good behavior and showing true remorse. While he was locked up, some car accident that he had been involved in had reached a financial settlement, and he received a lot of money, and he used that to pay for Reese and Larry's headstones. Reese and Larry's mother did not object to his release, and in fact said that, that headstone was a small token of good faith. Anwan has since relocated to Florida to live with family. Now, the court shenanigans. So Brice's first attorney, Brendan McLeod, actually had to recuse himself because he found out that the murdered brothers were actually the grandsons of a friend of his. So it was too close. It was a conflict. whatever. So he told Brice about this. The delightful gentleman Brice spit on him. Spit on his face. Then in front of the judge in the courtroom when Mr. McLeod was telling the judge that he had to recuse himself, Brice called him a coward and said, "I'll see you when I get out."
Nice cheap shot. You a coward. Nice cheap shot. You a coward. I'm gonna see you.
Lovely. So at Brice's next court appearance, that judge was not taking any chances. And Brice was confined to a wheelchair and made to wear a spit mask. Look at this. And, you know, this wasn't just from spitting on that lawyer. You know, by this time, Brice had a reputation for spitting on nurses in the jail, attacking COs, attacking other inmates, throwing his urine on people. I mean, he was doing the most. Anyway, so Brice Lecter was not a happy camper, and he threatened the judge and her family, saying that he was going to find out where she lives, stuff like that. So these courtroom antics, it's giving Daryl Brooks, if you remember any of that circus.
And you think that I think this is funny?
I don't think it's funny whatsoever.
In one hearing, Brice was actually making faces and gestures at the boy's mother, Marie Wren. In another hearing, you know, being displeased that the judge had not granted any of his motions, he asked the judge if he was having a sexual relationship with the prosecutor. He said something must be happening because the judge was denying every motion he filed. He filed. Oh yeah, you heard that right.
I write the Bar Social and the ACLU, you know. I write them, you know. I see what's going on, you know.
Fair enough.
He's had a revolving door of attorneys. It's not working out great for him. He refuses to speak to them. He insists on sending his own filings. He asked that same judge if he was racist, if he was a secret member of the KKK.
I don't know if y'all got some type of sexual relationship going on. Are you some type of racist? Which one is it?
Or are you just wrong?
Are you a secret Ku Klux Klan member?
I mean, the judge said, no, I'm denying your motions because they have no merit. Period. So part of the reason that the case is taking so long to get to trial is that the judge is doing everything that they can to prevent, you know, any basis for appeal or even mistrial.
You're gonna find out, though. You're gonna find out real quick. Promise that.
One of the most recent acts from his current attorney is they have asked for a competency trial. You know, they're trying to claim that he's mentally not fit, right? Well, the judge allowed it, but it didn't go well because Brice refused to speak to the evaluator. Either way, the new judge said that just because he has chosen not to participate in the evaluation and he chooses not to cooperate with his attorneys doesn't make him incompetent to stand trial.
He made comments about the court process that shows that he does understand what's going on. He understands the challenges that he faces because of having a high publicity case.
He was ruled competent, and the trial date has been set for December 11th, 2023. So we'll see. So unfortunately, there isn't really any resolution to this case today. We can probably bet more than $1 that Brice Rhodes isn't going to come out on top on this one. Well, Ja'Cory Taylor, Anwan Carter, and Tieran Coleman will all be testifying against him as state's witnesses, so not looking great for El Rambo Guzman. So that, for now, is the story of Brice Rhodes. I really need to go through old videos and find the ones that I need to do updates for, because this is going to be one of them. So I'll do an update. I hope. Don't let me forget. All right. Also, if you want to know any of the makeup that I used in today's look, just look down in the description box because everything is linked just for you. If you have a Crue Trime story that you would like to recommend to me, there is a Google Doc down below. You can fill in all of the dirty details. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then consider subscribing to this channel before you leave today. I upload new videos here on YouTube every week, and you can follow me on all of the other socials, including Facebook. People are still on Facebook, right? They are. They are. That is it for now. I will catch you next time in the next video. Bye! For trolling. What is that? This is the story. Why am I talking with this clip? What am I doing? What is the look that I'm doing? I have no fucking idea. Criminal. Murray, please use the litter box. Please use the litter box, sir. Use the litter box. Fucking Murray, man. He is shitting on the fucking floor right now.